You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free biweekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan.
Welcome everybody to another great QB Power Hour. Today's topic is Roadmap to a Paid QBO Diagnostic. We're very happy to have you all joining us today. As Dan said, it is January 31st, a busy day for us all in the accounting community. So thank you all for joining us. My name is Michelle Long, CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success, speaker for Intuit, author of 5 different books. Check them out on Amazon. There's the links to the Facebook group, LinkedIn group. Check us out there. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. Yeah, my name is Dan DeLong, owner at Danwith. Worked at Intuit for about 18 years, co-hosting today as well as the workshop Wednesdays over at School of Bookkeeping. And super excited to have Anna Calderon joining us today to talk about her very much needed concept, at least for myself. I mean, if nothing else, I'm going to get a lot out of this today. Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Anna. I'm owner of Hard Hats Bookkeeping and Consulting, and also of Anna Elite, which is my new educational platform, and where I do the QuickBooks Diagnostics. I've been in the bookkeeping for about 20 years. I don't have that much certifications, but I've been here for a while. I am working on certifications for many other courses too. So I'm a member of AIVP and QB ProAdvisor.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us here today and walking us through what I think is just a nice framework, as you call it, the roadmap to a paid diagnostic, and we'll kind of unpack that here today. So a little bit about the QB Power Hour. If you want to check out our website, there's a link there to be able to see what's upcoming for events, not just for the QB Power Hour, but also for other webinars and events as well. And if you need PDFs of the slides, recordings, or podcasts, or other resources, you can always go to qbpowerhour.com/resources, and we have everything there for you all in a nice, orderly fashion. So a little bit of housekeeping. There's no CPE for the QB Power Hour webinars yet, but I am, investigating some ways for us to be able to do that. If you have specific questions about the topics that we're going to be talking about here today, please put them in the Q&A. If you have general topics or general comments about the weather, or how cold it is where you might be, or or how warm it might be, depending on where you are. Maybe you're off in Turks and Caicos somewhere. You can put that in the chat. A little bit about getting the slides ahead of time. Emails come out 1 day and 1 hour prior, and there's a link there to the resources site as well. And if you, as you know, once you're registered for the series, you're registered for every QB Power Hour. But if you feel like you need to cancel, there's a link to cancel the registration at the bottom of those update emails. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today is Anna's going to talk to us about the benefits of a paid diagnostic and walk through her 12-step. It's an overview, and then what we were realizing is that there's a lot more to unpack than 1 hour will allow. So Anna has been hard at work at creating a workshop series all dedicated to this paid diagnostic. So that's our chat today. So let's launch our first poll. What version of QuickBooks do you use to support your clients? Because it's a great idea to give us an idea of who's tuning in today. So Anna, tell us a little bit about how this came up for you, right? You've been doing this for a while. Was there a horror story involved here, or what? How did this all happen?
So I wanted to do something like this, but I didn't really know how to or what to look for. until I got stuck in a cleanup that I thought was going to be pretty easy based on what the client was telling me. They said it was good, they had their own bookkeeper and everything was working perfectly. And then when I finally got in there to do the cleanup, I already priced them out. I saw something that was like, oh my Lord, 16 pages worth of a profit and loss, which was really crazy.
And it wasn't like the font was really big. It was
no, it wasn't. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it was a desktop. So I guess they could have millions of categories, I guess. So that's what really led me into like, I have to find out what's wrong with this before I go into a cleanup and charge what I'm really supposed to, because I really lost on that one. It took me longer than I was supposed to. So that was sorry.
Anna, I think we all have, hopefully it's just one, but I think unfortunately we all have several where, we've gotten into some cleanups and there's always unexpected things that we run into and wind up, getting in over our heads and stuff. So I think this is great, what you're doing here. So we're glad to have you sharing this with us today.
Thank you. And I'm really happy to do it.
All right. So let's dive right in. This roadmap to a paid diagnostic. So I'm going to stop sharing, which I forgot to do before I launched the poll. So Anna, if you want to, since you can drive this at your pace, since you're on the road, you better be the one at the controlling the accelerator or the brake.
Okay. Now I think is okay. There we go.
Perfect.
So we'll move off these screens. Everybody can see my screen? Or you
yep.
Can see? All right. So yes, so this is welcome to the roadmap to paid diagnostics. So I think that it is very important to do diagnostics review. It's having a diagnostic review will give you more of an accurate look at what needs to be fixed and corrected before you go into a cleanup. So the example is what happened to me, right? You want to address anything before you get in there and drive yourself nuts. And then you also want to get paid because this is your time that you're putting in to look through the books. Now you're not just diagnosing. Sorry. The books by doing just a look, right? Going through and just that's what I kind of did, and it just did not work. You need to really dig deep. So this is time. You have to value your experience and your time, because that's the most precious thing that we have, right? Our time and our experiences. We paid for all of that. So why not charge for that? Okay. I do have a little bit of how I charge. Kind of, you have 3 options. You have more options, obviously, you can come up with, but this is kind of where I think that right off the bat, this is what you can do. You could price it based on the annual revenue. And I'm just throwing numbers out here, just examples of what you can do. So, you can base it between 0 to 250,000. You can charge 500, or 251 to 500, 750, and so on. Another way is maybe add 15 to 20% more than your monthly minimum fee. So if you don't want to go any lower than 550 a month on regular monthly fee, you want to charge 15 to 20% more. And the reason I say more is because a cleanup is harder than just doing your regular monthly fee, because obviously now you're fixing mistakes that happened, not you're doing your work, where the categories are already going. So that's why I think you should charge a little bit extra than your monthly fee. Or you can go ahead.
I think these are great options, like for people to start from, because I remember when I left the cozy confines of a large employer to doing things on my own. A lot of these questions, like, I don't know where to begin, right? And I think it's a little overwhelming. I think for somebody who goes into the deep end of the pool like that, it's like, what do I charge for these kinds of services? So these give people pretty good a starting point. Especially if you haven't kind of mapped out all of the services But in my case, I didn't even know what I wanted to charge hourly, that's the simplest thing.
It's
is
hard.
just
And
doing
for me,
that.
it's hard. I guess it's hard for me to charge hourly because I don't charge hourly. So when a client comes to me, he's like, "What's your charge for hourly?" I'm like, I go nuts because I don't know what to do. Like, oh, I don't know, hourly. No, I do a fee, a set fee. So that's
Right.
easier for me. So, and that's that next option there. If you do want to charge hourly, and let's say that you want to do 150 an hour, then times that by 5 and charge that, or times whatever you think it would be. For me, I have a set fee, but I put in about 3 to 4 hours, about 3 hours or so, or 4 hours or so, to diagnose and do everything right. And then 1 hour to go and present it to them. Because I do go and I present it to them, Zoom.
How many diagnoses? How many diagnoses?
It is hard.
How many times did you diagnose a file until you realized like how long it normally takes you to do these things? Because I know, everyone is a one-off, right? You come to, but things start to kind of fall into buckets for you, right? Where it's like they're brand new, they don't have anything, they're fresh snow, or they've been using it for a while, and their teenager has been doing their their bookkeeping for them or something like that, where they kind of start to fall into kind of categories where you kind of know going in how long it's going to take you, or like just how many did you have to do before you realized, okay, this is kind of how this all falls.
So it does depend, obviously, like you said, but I think it was between my 4th and 5th is when I finally got into it, because the smaller ones is like I was just starting out to see how everything was going. And then as I was seeing more, as I was cleaning that one up, I'm like, oh, I think I have to diagnose something else deeper. So then that added an extra 30 or 40 minutes or whatever. And then from that cleanup, I started looking at more and more what other stuff I need to diagnose deeper, and add till I finally got to those 12 steps.
It's just like going to the gym, right? I mean, the first time it's a little sore.
Yeah.
A little painful.
Very
after
painful.
After a while,
Yeah.
you get used to it.
Yeah.
And then you add more weight.
Yes. And now you want to add more stuff to make it better.
So the one thing I would like to add just about the pricing aspect in here, and I love the fact that you're giving people just some guidelines in here. The one thing I personally would like to just throw out there is I want to encourage people to get away from the hourly rate. And I know a lot of us still think hourly when we're pricing, but I know we're trying to get away from that and moving towards the value pricing, or even now subscription pricing. And I know it's hard when we're talking cleanup work because you don't know what to expect, but we still can give people a range, and we can tell people, hey, this cleanup job is going to be anywhere, let's say, from $2,000 to $4,000. So you still can kind of be thinking hourly, like you're saying here, hourly times 5. So let's say the hourly times 5 is going to be, just to make it easy, $5,000 or $500. You might tell them, hey, this is going to be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 for this cleanup work. So you could be still kind of thinking, but the thing of it is these tools that we have with books review and with reclassified transactions, the tools that we have enable us to do the work faster than ever before. So we do need to get away. And when you get away from doing hourly pricing, and if you import the bank transactions using a tool like MoneyThumb or something like that, you can process a year's worth of transactions at a fraction of the time that it used to be. So we don't want to be doing it hourly, because you can process a year's worth of activity in a fraction of the time. So people should get a year's worth of accounting in less, at a discounted rate, because it took you less time to do it. So I still like to get away from giving people an hourly rate. You may use that when you're coming up with your value pricing. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there and tell people that there is a VCon coming up, and I'm doing a whole new session on value pricing and subscription pricing. So register for that upcoming VCon. at qbtrainingevents.com. Sorry, Anna, back to you.
That's okay. And that's actually why I put the hourly rate at the bottom as a third choice. Just because it's there, you have that option, but yeah. And yes, sometimes when you go into with your clients and I do it right in my right fit call, right? My discovery call. And I talk to them about what they need is a diagnostic review. So they're like, what is that? Right. So I do this analogy where, if you got to go to your doctors, you need to do your physical every year, right? You need to be healthy, or your car needs, to be good to run. So they have to do a diagnostics or, health check on you. And then the mechanic has to look through everything. So you want to compare, you want to explain it to your client or your lead in terms that they can understand. And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, I do need a physical. So your books need to be healthy too. So it's just something that you could always mention to them. So with the roadmap, I call it a roadmap because there are 5 stages that I go through in my workshop, and it's going from ideal client, looking for that ideal client, to the right fit call, and then the diagnostics. That's like that's the heart of the program, right? And then we also prepare the findings, and then we present it to sell the cleanup.
And the way you have it listed here, there are twists and turns along the way.
Yes. So, and then here's the checklist for the diagnostic review. These are the 12 steps that I go through, and I'm going to go through them very fast, kind of in a way. So first one is I match the return. So we need to make sure that the tax return is matched and closed out for the prior year. So I usually I ask for 3. But sometimes it's just that last one is the most important one. The other 2 is more for me to just do some analysis of how the trends, actually, I should say trends of previous years. I do an overview. So in this section, I want to make sure that I can take notes of what I see is accurate in the books in this area here. We then do the banking, the books review. This section, we identify all the transactions that are happening in the period or in the month. This also helps to identify how many transactions are happening in a month. So this can give you an idea for when you do the cleanup, how many transactions you might have to look through to put together not a cleanup, but the monthly fee. So if they're doing 500 transactions per month, then you can think, okay, well, that's going to somehow take me about this long. So if I do, quote them a monthly fee, how much work it's going to be involved. This section.
One of the things, Anna, that I gleaned from you from watching you do this over and over again, is that your paid diagnostic is the answer to almost every question that they have. Right, like whatever situation they say. They talk a little bit about that. I like how you position that within your roadmap.
I guess I just went through everything. I'm preparing myself for the monthly fee, for the monthly review, like the monthly fee that I want to do. So I ask myself questions on what I have to know in order to price them out the monthly. So I'm also trying to get all of that at the same time so that I kind of won't go back and do it. Does that answer your question? Or am I off?
No, yeah. I mean, what I really love about, positioning this, the 5 steps in that roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
All roads, like they used to say, all roads lead to Rome. Like all roads lead to a paid diagnostic before you even, move to that next step. A lot of somebody put in the chat, the messier that people's books are, the less willing they are for you to look at them because they know how unmade their bed is.
Yeah.
But that is kind of like a stopping point for you. Like if they don't want to do the paid diagnostic, you really don't want to take them on as a client, right?
Exactly. Because if they can't afford $375, $475 for diagnostics, that's going to give them a whole overview of their financials, which is super important. Then how how much do they really care about their books? Like that you don't want to get your books diagnosed. Then you probably are hiding something, which is like, oh, my books are messy. And that's okay. We're always scared about that. So we kind of, in that meeting, we kind of have to tell them it's okay to be afraid of showing your books. It's okay. We're not going to judge. It's just helping you change, get from where you're at to a better position and helping you clean all of that up. So I'm afraid to go to my physical, but I have to go, right? So it's like, so I think it's, yeah.
Awesome. Sorry to kind of derail, but I wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit, and how, people are asking questions about the pricing that you listed earlier. Those are just suggestions. You can, it's entirely up to, you as a business owner as to what you want to charge for this type of service. But the bottom line that Anna, I know I'm going to mess it up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anna. There we go.
There we go.
Anna Banana.
That Anna is suggesting is that, you're doing yourself a disservice by not offering this as a service, to your clients, because they do have something that they can take, that there's a tangible takeaway for this service, whether they choose to engage with you after that or not, right?
Yes, they're going to get, I give them everything that I find. And they could take it and do it themselves, or I make it so complicated that they say, you know what, you do it. Of course. So, yeah. Yeah, but I think that it's just your beginning price. You don't have to, those numbers are just thrown out, at the ways of you can do, and you could start low, pricing it out low. And then as you see, price out $50 more on the next one, $50 more on the next one, $50 more on the next one, until you get to a point where you're happy, I think.
Perfect.
Accounts receivable, we want to look here at open invoices, how much of that is past due and what's new, if there are any credits, negatives, are they, accurate or they're not accurate. So we dig deep into this report here. Same thing goes, oh, go ahead, sorry.
We'll pause for a poll. Where'd they go? Okay. Do you currently offer a paid diagnostic service? I want to get an idea of people that may are already doing that. I know some people are putting that in the chat already.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to share. What Linda just said she does. She does $397 for a paid diagnostic review with a 3 to 5 page report, and she gives them 1 to 3 options to resolve the issue. And that's what I like, because sometimes the client, they want you to just clean everything up. Sometimes the client says, well, I want to keep the fees down, so you train me how to clean it up. Like, you show me what to do to clean it up, and then I'll do the cleanup work under your supervision. And so sometimes, I'll do something like that. And I think, Anna, you said you will too. Sometimes they want you to guide them on how to do the cleanup work, and sometimes I'll do that. But yes, I'm going to charge them for that. You charge them for your training them how to clean it up, and let them do that, because that helps them learn how to do it and clean it up and be self-sufficient on an ongoing basis, and then sometimes they just, whatever reason, they may not do anything. They just don't make a decision or whatever. But Linda says she doesn't do any bookkeeping, and she turns off, if they want ongoing monthly bookkeeping, she'll turn them over to another QuickBooks expert, so I thought that was interesting. And Cindy Schroeder, she does $397 too. So that must be the magic number. The $397 is the magic pricing there. So
at 7 at the end is that magic number. Awesome. Yeah.
And what you're showing us here is actually the diagnostic steps that you do inside of QuickBooks Online. That doesn't mean that this is the only way to do these. It's just kind of like a framework for, if you're doing a diagnostic for desktop, because you mentioned that the first one that with the 16-page profit and loss, that was actually a desktop interaction. So you can take some of these same concepts and transpose them over to desktop, or if you're doing a data file integrity service as well, you can add, take these steps and kind of take them into, transpose them into your business or your practice.
Yeah. I mean, I do this on QuickBooks Online. I'm thinking of doing one to see how a diagnostics would happen, or the steps for a desktop one. But I think it's just the basic, and you can, you'll find what you might, what works for you. So, on any form.
And I did have a question for you, and somebody mentioned it in there somewhere. I think I saw the question come through. Okay, so some people will offer a free initial consultation, either 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Some people will offer a diagnostic review or initial consultation, and they may say, okay, this initial is going to be $300 or $500 or whatever, and then they may give you a credit back if you do the work with us. What is your position on that? Do you do free initial reviews, or do you give them a credit back if they do the service with you or have the cleanup with you? Do you do that? Have you tried that? What are your thoughts on that?
So I did. When I first started, I guess for me to close the deal, I did offer that because I kind of guaranteed my cleanup by giving them the credit on the cleanup. So at first, that's what I was doing. And then I didn't like how that looked on my profit and loss. So I started doing half of it, 50% towards whatever service you wanted, whether it was the first month's monthly fee or a cleanup. So I gave them that choice. Now, another option that I would do was I would say, it's, February 14th or whatever, whatever holiday it is, right? And that's not holiday, but whatever it is. And you give them like, oh, well, this month I'm giving a $200 off my diagnostic review. So you would just bump it up the $200 and you charge what you really did want to charge. So if your fee was $500, you charge it up $700, right? So you say it was $700 and you took the $200 discount, you still get your $500. So that also worked for me. But yeah, so it's not a bad idea. I think it's a good thing. You actually maybe not guarantee the cleanup or the extra service that they do, but if you do have a training, you kind of guaranteed that training, because now you know that they know that whatever service they're going to have extra, they're going to apply that to. So
that's a really good strategy, I think, is being able to tie the diagnosis into the next service that you're going to be offering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that way you get a commitment from the client, and one of the things we were talking about pricing earlier and stuff too is, I encourage people, to get them to pay for the diagnostic upfront, or if you're going to be doing a cleanup project, like let's say, you tell them, okay, this project's going to take, $2,000 to $4,000 or $2,000 to $3,000. Get them to pay at least half of the fee up front or some of the fee up front, or pay for that diagnosis up front before you start doing any work. If you can't get the client to pay some money up front and make a commitment up front, what makes you think they're going to pay you later, after you've done the work?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, if you're not going to get the client to pay up front, you're not going to get them to pay later. So don't do the work.
Yeah, the diagnostics, I get it paid and a contract signed and a paid invoice right at our diagnostic or our discovery call. So before we even begin touching their books, and same thing with the cleanup, we do a fix.
Let's unpack that. Let me just stop with what you said. So you get a paid commitment as you're talking about the service you haven't even done yet.
Yes.
And how long does it take you to talk about the service, the diagnostic, the diagnostic service, to the point of where you're taking them to the next phase of here's my engagement letter, for this service and what I'll need from you and and everything like that, or how long does that take?
Well,
typically.
During the meeting, we're talking about all their pains and all of their everything, why they called me, right? Because they're going through something and they want us to look at their books. So I listen to everything. I give them recommendations. And then at the end, I do say, I think that a paid diagnostics would be beneficial for you because, I can look to see what is going on. You can tell me that this is wrong, and this is wrong, but I need to see what is really going on. And then I list out everything that I'm going to provide to them with the diagnostic. So they're going to have everything that I find with the recommendations on everything that is wrong with their books. And then I even tell them, like, you can take it and do it yourself, or we can do a cleanup for you. But I try to have them fall in love with the diagnostic so I can see their faces and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. So then I'm like, okay, but it's going to be this much. And at the end, before my meeting, I already have my contract ready. It's already like assuming that they say yes. So as soon as they say yes, then I just click on, okay, well, let me send you the contract. And so.
and that's why it's, what you have is so, I think, brilliant, because regardless of where they're at coming in, the outcome is, let's diagnose it first and then go from there.
That's the first thing.
Not taking their word for it that, my books are clean. I just started. But it's like when a senior citizen tells me they're on a fixed income, it could be fixed really high, right?
Yeah. So.
All right, let's press on with the new no more steps here.
All right. So as I was saying with the accounts receivable, we do the same thing with accounts payable. We want to see what are open bills. We want to see any duplicative vendors, what is past due, if there are credits that need to be, applied to those invoices that are open or that they haven't even received a credit for. So we want to look at that in the report. This payroll part here is only the setup. You need to make sure that it's set up correctly if they're using QuickBooks Payroll. If they're using a different software, then you just make sure that the journal entries are coming in through that third-party app into, the categories that are correct, and making sure that, liabilities are accurate and everything, which also falls into the next one, which is the taxes. So those kind of go hand in hand. You want to make sure that the payroll taxes are entered accurately. And if they're using sales tax, then you need to make sure that the sales tax are set up correctly. You want to look at their My Tax to make sure that the payments are also coming in right, that they're not overdue and all that good stuff in this section. Sometimes we can skip this section because they don't do sales tax. So, and payroll taxes, some might not have payroll. So maybe it's just contractors. In my case, there's a lot of them that have no contractors because I'm in the construction industry, right? Some do, some don't just want to work with contractors. So it just depends, and you might skip steps. The chart of accounts, here you just want to make sure that the accounts are accurate for the industry that you're looking at. So I would have to look at, if you're doing e-commerce, then you make sure that the list of the accounts are accurate for that industry. And construction, you have to look at to make sure that that list is accurate for that industry. So you just want to make sure that those are okay, and then also remove any duplicates, because there's always duplicates. And then classes and locations.
You had talked about in your initial roadmap, the finding the ideal client is step one, which is what type of client you typically take on. Now, I can tell from the hard hat sitting behind you, you specialize in construction and contractors.
Yes.
How did it evolve to that for you?
Construction I have a background in construction. So not background itself, like I lived with construction all the time. My dad was landscaping. My husband now is, in the construction industry. My brother owns a construction business. And so construction's always been around me. Plus, I don't know why, but construction just feels challenging. And I love that. It feels hard, but at the same time, it's so easy. I don't know. There's just I don't know, but ever since I started bookkeeping, it's like, that's what I said and I wanted to do. That's the industry that I wanted to do for anything. So when doing the diagnostics, I needed to know what to look for in the construction industry, special for them versus any other industry. So that's why looking at narrowing down your niche might put you in a better position when doing a diagnostics, because now you're not only showing them their messy books, but now you're also showing them, like, let's say the classes and locations. Like, are they using, in my industry, like the construction, are they using classes and location accurately to that industry? And, maybe something, you might not look at that if you're doing a diagnostics for just any another industry. Maybe you will, obviously, like locations or whatever, but that's kind of why I chose just to narrow down and know what I'm going to be specialized in. Yeah.
Now, when you and that helps with that last step where it's like, is it set up for their industry? You kind of already have those best practices at your disposal so that you can kind of put it through that lens. Now, Kimberly asked in the Q&A, do you have a template that you work off of, when you go through all of this? I do.
I have little questions that I ask myself and everything's checked off. And then I have little buckets. And then at the end, I also categorize as how hard it's going to be. This section, like if the classes and locations is super messy, then I determine how hard do I see it is. And it'll also come together to pull up a cleanup price at the end of the whole thing based on my cleanup. So yeah, but yeah, I do have a worksheet for that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge of, looking at this in terms of, are you a generalist or a specialist in a certain industry? And what if your industry is outside of, what you specialize in, right? Like you specialize in construction. How can I take that? And if I am specializing in e-commerce, so sales tax is a concern, inventory is a concern, which is not a concern for a lot of construction companies. How do I take that into the diagnosis? What if they're using an app that I don't know, like I've never heard of before, or never worked with? How does that fall into where your findings document at the end of the diagnosis?
So that part, like if they have another app, that goes in that overview part. Mm-hmm. So I have a question in there where are they using a third-party app? Do we have to get into it to sync invoices or whatever it is? So that is another, like, okay, well, that's number 5 for me, right? That's extra work because now I have to go and make sure that that app is syncing correctly with this, with QuickBooks and everything. So, and then if it is inventory, I did have a slide for inventory. Not a slide, but I did have like a number for inventory, but because the 12 steps is more like, kind of based it off of what I'm doing construction. So you kind of, there is a part in my spreadsheet that has inventory that asks different questions for that inventory. But I think that at the beginning you have to like start looking at, okay, they have this, they have this, they have all of this, so that you know what to dig in within the reports and everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ann, I had a quick question for you, and maybe you covered this and I missed it because I was typing answers and stuff over there. When you're going through the report with the client, because I know you said you allow an hour to kind of go over the results with them and stuff, do you actually get in QuickBooks and go through and talk to them about, this is wrong and this is how you need to fix it? Or do you just go over the report with them and discuss it that way? Or do you go over it with them in QuickBooks?
No, I actually go through the report with them. I do take snapshots of different items in QuickBooks that I see that I can point out to them, but I do not go in there and I do not tell them this is how you do it exactly.
Gotcha. So you're just going over the report.
Yes.
And do you tell them the impact? Do you tell them the impact on their financials? Like you were just talking about inventory. Let's say you've discovered negative inventory or something. Do you discuss the impact on their financials?
I do. I tell them what this why this is wrong and everything. So yeah, I do tell them, I give them recommendations on all of that.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Love it.
I know this part here is very, very minimal, but I think it's also very important. The account settings is to go and make sure that everything is turned on and turned off that needs to be. If they're not using something in the settings, it should be turned off. I hate the little apply credit to whatever comes up. I always hate that, in my opinion, right? But so I try to take that off like all the time. I always tell them that this is like the main one. But you also want to make sure that, they have their logo, everything's in there set up correctly. If they're using the invoices, you can tell them, you can make this prettier, whatever, just give them little tips. But I mean, this is not as important, but it's just extra little things to let them know that you are doing something else outside the box, kind of a thing.
Right. All right. So let's talk about scope creep. This is one of those things that, I learned it in a learning and development space where, somebody says, hey, we need some training on this. And then by the time you're ready to deliver the training, it looks nothing like what you had originally intended the training to look like, because there was so much, well, we could add this in here and we could do that in there. QuickBooks diagnoses. I'm still not sure how we pronounce it plural. I know somebody put that in the chat, but doing a diagnostic can certainly prohibit scope creep from happening, because you've done that due diligence ahead of time, and that flows into that.
And it could still creep up. They could still creep up after you've done it. Again, that's what happened. Why after my third or fourth, I kind of knew, okay, this is extra stuff that I really do need to dig deep in, because, after I did the cleanup, I figured, oh, geez, I didn't see that in my diagnostics, so they still creep up, but now that's kind of on you, because you kind of did the diagnosis and you didn't catch that on time. You learned from that, and now you diagnose it on the next one, kind of. So it keeps on growing. So, yeah.
And one of the things that I still struggle with is that's not the way I would have done it, but it's okay. I have to leave it alone. I don't have to change it, but it's okay. This way is still fine. You know what I mean? Just some, the accounting is still fine. The P&L is fine. That's not the way I would have set it up, or that's not the way I would have done it. But, bottom line, it's okay. I don't have to change it. I don't have to fix it. I can leave it. And maybe we change it moving forward or something. But, I have to learn sometimes to leave things alone. That, that's not something that has to be fixed. You know what I mean? So sometimes the scope creep could be my own fault. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. You could be your own worst creeper.
Yeah. And I have to learn that leave it alone, Michelle. You don't have to change that. And I also have to learn sometimes that you don't have to fix every little thing, because we do want to get in there and fix every little thing. And sometimes, I have to learn just leave it alone. It's, it's okay.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, we don't have to have perfect books. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah. It's hard when you want to have everything perfect.
And I see other people said they're the same way. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Misery loves company, Michelle.
Good. Yes.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
So yeah, it looks like a lot of people are learning from their mistakes. It looks like 83% have suffered from scope creep. But maybe we should have a follow-up question. Was that client inflicted scope creep or your own?
Yes.
All right.
And then the profit and loss, that one takes a little bit longer, because now we are analyzing every section of the profit and loss and making sure that everything is running smoothly. So in income, we want to make sure that if they are using invoices, that it doesn't have deposits, right? So we want to make sure that there's those are accurate, because sometimes they'll have a deposit and then they also have an invoice, the same one. So now you're duplicating your income, right? So same thing with the cost of goods and expenses. If they're using bills and they're still applying it as an expense, so you just want to make sure that those are accurate. Balance sheet, the same thing. You want to go through every section of it, asset, liabilities, and equity, making sure that those are all running smoothly. The loans, the credit cards, and all of that good stuff. So we did dig deep into those two reports a lot more specifically. And then after all of that, we finally prepare your findings and we create the report. I do recommend taking a snapshot of the items that that are important to show the client. So that's what I was talking about before. Like take a snapshot of something in the QuickBooks that you saw that you want to show them. So sometimes when example is I take a snapshot of the banks and when was the last time that they reconciled. So I mean, I could easily type it in, but I also like to show it to them to see that this is where I got this, right? I list out the recommendations of all of the steps that whatever I found. I prepare the cleanup proposal as if they're going to say yes. And I also prepare a monthly bookkeeping proposal as if they're going to say yes, and have that ready. So when you do when you go and present to your client the diagnostics findings, you already have your cleanup proposal ready, your monthly bookkeeping proposal ready. Sometimes they'll say, let me think about it, obviously, right? But if they say, yes, let's do it, this needs to be cleaned up now, you're already prepared and you click send and it's there. So it's just like how you did with the diagnostics.
And typically, Anna, what's the passage of time between the time that you got the invoice paid to do the diagnostics and the findings? What would you? I'm sure it's going to vary based off of what you're in for,
Yeah.
But typically, what do you set the expectation for the client at that point?
So I always give them a 3 to 5 days. Business days. So
business days, yeah.
Business days. Yeah, business days. So I always give them that 3 to 5 business days. And then I tell them that, if once I'm done with that, you'll get an email from me saying to book that the meeting for the proposal. Whether I can do it 2 ways. Sometimes I've done it both ways. I already plan out what day it is, so we meet again for the proposal, the findings presentation, and then I also do I'll email them afterwards. But I found that if I plan it out that same day, sometimes I'm going back and saying I need 1 more day, so that kind of doesn't look good on me, I feel. So that's why I kind of switched over to saying I'll let you know when we're done so we can set up the presentation. Yeah. So is that, yeah.
Yep.
And this is just an example of a cleanup proposal that I've been using, and I've been it was much harder for me to do the cleanup proposals, but I started off with, like, let's say that $350 per month or $1,200 per month. And then, you times that by whatever months. So that's like my beginning cost. Cause now I actually, if it depends on how messy I see that it is, that I need to, like I said before, I vary it from like 1 to 5. So 1 being, not too much work, and 5 being like, oh my gosh, this is going to take me forever, kind of a thing. So I base that on everything that I find, and that's
and I'm sure some people say, well, like, I need to talk to my partner or what have you, or take some time to think about it. Do you give them an expiration date on the findings as far as the fees are concerned? Because if they wait like 2 months, they could totally mess up their books, I can see, between the time that you've looked at it and then the next time.
I do give 7 to 15 days, actually. 7 to 15 days on the proposal, and I do have it on the proposal. It does say on the top, like, this expires that whatever day, and it is, it can go up depending on when you come back to me. But
right. The longer you wait, the higher.
But I don't. I also try to see like how it could work for all of us. So I don't. So it's like $4,200. If that's too much for them, I break it up. Like 4,200, I would break that up in two, right? But if it was higher, I could break it up to three, or maybe, depending on how high it is for the cleanup.
And then you had said before, like you might take some of your diagnosis fee and credit it towards this service, or the choice is up to you, right? Like how do you do that? Maybe you want to apply some or all, or what would you say your strategy is, where you're at now as far as like best practice?
So it does depend. I apply it to the cleanup. But if they don't want the cleanup, even though if they do need a cleanup, I can't work with them without the cleanup, obviously. You need clean books, so that needs to be number one. But if I see that there's not that much of a cleanup, I can apply it to the first month's fee, which I haven't had, but that's something in my books. Like, if this happens, you can do this. But normally I've had very messy books.
So Terry put a question in here, and I thought it was a great question that we wanted to discuss, as well as something that I came up with. So Terry said that they did a diagnostic review and didn't take the client because of the following. How would you proceed with a new client whose equity section is not correct and the previous bookkeeper is deceased? For instance, how would you proceed to establish the correct tax basis? So Anna, the first step that you mentioned was getting the prior tax return.
Yes.
And so that's great if it's a corporation, because the corporation will have the balance sheet on there, right? But if it's a sole proprietor, you don't have a balance sheet. You don't have an equity section, right? With a sole prop, you don't know what the equity section is, right? So if you've got a sole proprietor, you don't know what the equity section is when you're setting up the books and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so you can't know what the correct equity section is for a sole prop. If you've got a corporation, you do know what the right equity section is.
Yeah.
And I recently had a new client that came to me and, was trying to set him up, and the previous accountants had booked like $57,000 to adjust the prior balance sheet, and they booked it to an equity account. And I'm like, 57,000 of an account to equity to adjust the prior balance sheet balance. Well, we still don't know what the heck that was, and it's like, so I told him, I said, you're going to have to talk to the tax accountant about what do they want to do about that. Do we want to go back and figure it out and open up last year and look at this, or what do we do? Because I am not the tax accountant.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing your taxes. And, so I'm like, you need to discuss this with your tax professional.
Yeah.
Is it material? If it's $57,000 out of a $2 million company, it may or may not be material. If it's $57,000 out of a company that's doing $200,000 a year, it's material. And yes, we have to go back and look and figure out what it is. If it's 57 out of a $5 million company, it's not that big of a deal. So materiality does come into play. And there may be times that you have to talk to the tax professional to determine, what do we need to do? And you can't make that decision on your own. And $57,000 may or may not be a big deal, depending on the size of the client.
Oh, yeah.
So there's times where you do need to discuss things with the tax accountant if that's not you. And I'm not the tax professional. I'm not doing that. So I don't know whether we need to dig into last year or not, because I'm not the tax professional, and I'm not going to make that decision because I'm not doing it,
And so that's why you would ask that, like in the findings, if you see something like that, you ask them, okay, what happened here? What's this? And then if I suggest we talk to your client, your accountant, to see what's going on. But because you can't move any diagnostic, you're just looking at it.
Now, Anna, you covered a lot of stuff here, but you just covered the surface. Yes. Don't you have a more in-depth workshop or webinar series coming up to tell us about?
Yes. So I do have a workshop coming up. So I'll go over this, and then we can go into that, the whatever slide I have on that one. So I went over all of this, right?
You're a curve.
Sorry.
You're fine. Okay, so here's like the roadmap to crush your diagnostic review, right? So again, we will go through this in the workshop. It's a 5-week workshop, and it does start on February 28th. But we are doing that's a poll for you.
Yep. So the workshop series that you've created is these 12 steps. You kind of break them up into smaller, easier to digest topics, but you take a deeper dive into each one. What do you find? What are you looking for when you do that? And during that's where you would kind of share your master checklist, right? I mean,
Yes.
we have a lot of people asking, well, would you be willing to give us your your checklist, right? Well, that's where the workshop comes in. Is if you dive into that, then you'll be able to take a closer look at what questions you ask on a regular basis.
So what I do in the workshop, it's a 5-week workshop. Last one I ran was 4 weeks, but I knew that 4 weeks was a little short. So I did the 5-week because I crammed in the most important stuff in one day. So I wanted to expand it a little bit more. So how it works is, the first day is more of like that ideal client and the discovery call, which is, we want to get those out of the way because the main topic for the workshop is the diagnostics. So we do break it up into 4 parts so that we're, diagnosing everything within. I tell you exactly what my questions that I ask myself and where I look for them and where I find them, right? And then at the end, the last day is we put it all together. And then I show you how I come up with that cleanup price all and the same worksheet. But it's one day, so it would be Tuesday. Would be on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays we come back for like questions based on what we talked about to the prior. But I also will have like action steps where I would love for you guys to, take action right away. Because that's the point of a workshop, right? To take action and get your money's worth.
Now, if you're doing this on Tuesday, that might conflict with the Power Hour. Is that?
I know.
Do you do those all live, or do you? Can they review them if they had an emergency came up or something like that?
Yes, they will be having. They will have the replays. So if they can't make it, you will still have your. You can see them at a different date or a different hour. So yeah, that's it. I'll make sure it's not conflict with Power Hour.
Anna, I wish I would have had the opportunity to take a workshop like that years ago. It would have saved me so much time and trouble if I could have done something like that. And I mean, I just think of, how much time and money it would have saved me to avoid mistakes by having somebody else share the years of experience that you have and learning from the mistakes that you've made over the years, to be able to share that knowledge with your peers and with other people, and to give them the opportunity to learn from everything that you've learned over, you said, 20 years of doing this? I mean, I just think that's great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and skills and everything that you've learned over the years of doing it. I just think that's awesome.
Well, I can't take all the credit. I did have a lot of, help as well. So, I mean, when I first did my first diagnostic, I was like, oh, I can do a free diagnostics, and then I was like, no, you cannot do that. Pricing, a lot of that helped me with my networking people, like everybody's helped me so much with that. And I took courses on diagnostic review. So that kind of like opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And then obviously just make it to work for me, for my industry.
Right. That's awesome.
You actually have a QR code on the next slide. So if you want to, people just want to take a picture, it'll take you out to the link to pre-register if you want to register. You want to do it right now, but we'll appreciate people. Go ahead.
Yeah, just get your phone and put it right up there, and you can get the link and
it should work
right there. It does work, Anna. I tested it out, and it does work.
And,
So the launch will be on February 17th, but the course itself will start on February 28th.
And of course, as accountants, people want to know, well, how much is this workshop going to cost? What is it going to cost me? I know you talk about that a little bit more in detail on the launch workshop that you do, but what could people expect? Is it going to be like, tens of thousands of dollars?
No, no. But I
not
think
yet, right?
No, not yet. I don't think I'll ever get it, but it's okay. I think that you would be able to see a good return on your investment within, I would say, depending on how actionable you are, if that's the word. But I think that you can get it within 2 diagnostics that you do. 2 or 3 diagnostics, you'll get your money's worth back. So that's why I like for people, if you're doing the course, I like to push you to do, to take action right away. I'm that type of person where I take action like right away. I have to, because otherwise I won't do it later. So from my experience, I think that taking it right away will help you get your money's back. So.
Well, yeah. And the any learnings that you have will be just further enforced, right? The more that, the quicker and the sooner that you take action on those things that you discover, it will then become second nature.
Yes.
Michelle, you were saying?
Well, I was going to say, I think we already shared some great tips with people that are going to help them here. I saw some notes in there that they're already going to start doing a paid diagnostic review, and other people talked about doing retainers and things. And so I think we've already shared some great tips with people that are very valuable for them. And I'm sure your workshop would have a lot of other great tips for people as well. So Dan, I saw some people saying, thank you for bringing Anna on here. So Dan, you're the one that came up with the idea. So thank you. I think it was awesome. So I think it was great.
Totally self-serving. I just needed some private time with Anna, and and just wanted to share that private time with 100 or few of my closest friends as well.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, Anna, thank you. It is great to see you again. Try to stay warm, and everybody else that's freezing or dealing with ice or whatever else. Thank you guys all, and hope everybody stays warm and safe. And Dan, I love you, but don't cheat.
Fly, Eagles, fly. We'll see you next time on the QB Power Hour. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.